This reading is from an interview in the Sun magazine with Krishna Das. Our lives are full of people, places, dogs, cats, dust in the closet, piles of laundry, dirty dishes in the sink. How we deal with it all, how we greet it, is essential to the way we feel about ourselves. If we see the dishes in the sink as something that's imposed on us from the outside, and we see ourselves as victims of these miserable dishes, then we forget that we put them there. We're all in this soup. I'm in it too, swimming around with all the vegetables and all the noodles and bumping into peas and carrots. Like you, I'm trying to get out of the soup, but after a while, it's not so bad. We can float and wiggle our toes and throw vegetables at each other. When I talk about seeking, I'm not talking about philosophy. The void, nothingness, emptiness. These are philosophical concepts and they are hard to understand. They're not really where I spend my time. I'm talking about finding a love that lasts, a happiness that does not depend on possessions and the way others see us, and the strength to deal with the hard parts of life. Nothing versus something. These are the questions that people talk about when they don't have an inner knowing. Trying to understand it with the mind is impossible. It has to be experienced. And when you experience it, it is exactly the opposite of what you thought it was. The part of you that thinks it understands ultimately has to go away before any real truth arises. It's like what the 19th century Indian mystic Ramakrishna said about chanting. Every repetition of the divine name is a seed that's planted. And this seed gets caught by the wind and is blown until it lands on the roof of an old house in the middle of nowhere, where it gets stuck between the clay tiles. And over time, the tiles break down and the seed can take root in the clay. The clay tiles for old roofs in India weren't baked in a kiln, so they weren't that hard. And then these roots grow and keep growing until they destroy the whole roof, the whole house. And Ramakrishna says that the old house that's destroyed is the separate entity we believe ourselves to be. Ultimately, that separateness, that isolated feeling of me, will not remain when you go deeper into yourself and recognize yourself to be the whole universe, so to speak. You can still function, but once you're not identified with that self anymore, you don't need to do the same things that you used to in order to get through the day and feel good. You don't need people to love you. You don't need people to honor you or respect you. You don't need to prop yourself up with belongings because you're in touch with your natural sense of well-being that lives in all of our hearts. That's the something we're trying to find.